And welcome back to another episode of Slice with Sci-Fi. I am Summer Brooks.
And I'm Ben Raggington.
And we have two very, very special guests with us today. John Barrowman and his sister Carole have written some excellent young adult novels, and they are here to gloat to us about how talented the whole family is.
I'm more talented than he is.
I'm better looking.
Wow.
Well, for you, Carole, to say that you're more talented than John, that really says something.
That's a pretty big statement.
Because I've seen how talented John is at cons. I mean, he's pretty amazing. So you've got to be just really out of this world.
Let's just say I am talented in different ways. How about that?
Oh, that's good.
All right.
You know, one thing that's good about our family, and with everybody, myself, Carole, my brother, and my mom and dad being the kind of producers of all of us in a way. If you look at it like it's a TV show, we all are qualified and good in our own kind of realm. And, some of us kind of cross over into those other realms. And, we've got, if you were to put us like in categories as the siblings, I would say my brother is the sportsman, Carole is the intellectual, and I am the entertainer. But having said that, with my sister and I, then what we do is we kind of bleed out of it because I like to think I'm intellectual.
And I like to think I'm very entertaining.
So we kind of cross over, and then we'll pull each other aside, and she'll say to me, "That was completely wrong," and I'll say to her, "That was not funny."
And see, there was one day during Comic-Con that he was talking. Oh, I know, he was on Twitter doing something, and I leaned over, not realizing it was live, and said, "You know something, John? You're not really as funny as you think you are." And somebody ran with that on Twitter and said that has to be the best big sister to little brother line ever.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
so
awesome.
There you go. That's us in a nutshell.
Now, Carole, you are the university professor, right?
Yes. I teach. I'm an English professor at Alverno College in Milwaukee, in Wisconsin.
Now, does that mean you do the heavy part of the heavy lifting for the writing, or is there a shared dynamic there?
Oh my God, no, I can say this on her, but she does all the writing.
Yes, it's interesting. We have I think what's a pretty unique collaboration, and one that works for our strengths. We both have amazing imaginations, and again, I think that comes from our family. We're big storytellers and always have been. And John and I, we get together 2, 3, 4 times a year, spend extensive amount of time. We outline. When we were pitching the 3 books to the publisher originally, it all happened on a car ride, and we sort of had the big events that we wanted to see happen over the arc of the 3 books. And then he kicks me out of his house, sends me back to Milwaukee, and I do all the writing, and then he really doesn't come back in again until I have a decent draft that he reads and then comes back and says, "Well, what happened to this idea? Let's pull this out a little more," or "I really love this," and honestly, I don't think there was ever anything I really hate, but there was a few things he liked to tweak, but it works for us. It works for how our imaginations work, and it works for the other parts of our life and keeping us connected.
Okay, well, it's interesting that you bring this up. Now, given that your 2 main characters, Matt and Em, are brother and sister, and clearly that the story has ties to Scotland and England, and given that the 2 characters also have extremely powerful imaginations, how much did you draw from your own personal lives as some sort of source material? And was that the reason why the both of you wanted to come together and maybe write these series of books?
Well, the part of that, if you have to go back to our initial books that we first wrote together, which were my autobiographies. And I always wanted, I'd had success in my career with doing things, obviously with Doctor Who and Torchwood and other stuff that my entertainment shows in the UK, and my profile had grown so much. And a publisher came to us and said, and to myself and my manager, Gavin, and they said, "Would you guys do an autobiography?" And I said, "Well, I'm too young." And they said, "Look, go away and think about it and see what you come up with." So I went away and thought about all of the different stuff, and I thought, you know what? Carole's always wanted to be a published author. author. And, she's done her newspaper articles, and she writes for the newspapers in Minneapolis and Wisconsin and does other stuff, and she has had things published. But if I can do what I'm doing and help someone else's dream come true in the aspect of, writing novels and books, then let's go. So I went back to the publishers and I said, I will do the autobiography on one condition, that my sister writes it for me, because there's nobody who knows my voice better, nor is there nobody who's going to, screw me over, because she's a part of the family. So we then, that was the first book that we wrote together, which was on the bestseller list for the Sunday Times bestseller list for 13 weeks in the UK. So it established us right away as best-selling authors. So therefore, we went for, moving further, we did a second installment of it, which was more family stories. And then we decided, and it was on that car journey where we just said, what would be your superpower if you had one? And we started talking, and that's where we came up with the Hollow Earth idea. So it was kind of a progression that really, was meant to happen. And also the fact is that Carole wanted to be, she wants to write, she wants to do books. Eventually she'd like to be writing and not teaching. So if I can assist and help in that way, because I have things that I want to do, and together we can do them, then it's the perfect progression. So that's where the kind of the Hollow Earth and it was birthed really from the first two books that we started writing together.
And I would also say that there's probably a little bit of
yeah, I didn't even answer the question, did I?
That's all right. That's what I'm here for.
No, because halfway through it, I'm thinking, where the hell are you going with this, John?
Yeah, and you.
But no, before you jump in, Carole, with that aspect of did we use parts of our life? Well, we did, because there's a lot of the characters that are in the books that are actual people that we knew. Jeannie is kind of a cross between our Gran Myrn and our Aunt Jeannie, who was Myrn's sister, and they were both we've kind of, worked them into the story really well with that character. Sandy is actually my partner Scott's sister, who passed away of brain cancer, and we thought it would be lovely to have her have the life, celebrating and also living the life with children, because she wasn't able to do it in the real world. And Carole, played with there's a lot of Turner, my nephew, in one of the characters, and the same with my niece Claire, and different family members. And a lot of the older stuff that we did, this is where I'll hand over to my sister, the things, the vacations that we used to go on and do in Largs and also on the island when we were kids, I vaguely remember that because she's older, she remembers.
Not that much.
She's older. She remembers it better.
Yeah, and actually, what's really been really very sweet for us, the last couple of times we've gone back to Largs, of course, we've been spotted immediately, and it's sort of revitalized the islands that we set the story and the whole mythology of the trilogy is set on islands that are called Cumbrae, and in Scottish they're Big Cumbrae Island and Wee Cumbrae Island, and we renamed them after our grandmother who lived with us for many years and who we just adored. And we call them Auchinmurn. And we have had people came up to us when we were going over there to do a little research I think it was in the winter or spring. They said, "Oh, you guys taking the ferry to Auchinmurn?" And it's like Auchinmurn isn't real. it's Cumbrae. But that's kind of sweet. So there's I think, in answer to your question, there's lots of us in it.
Yeah, and we're exceptionally proud of our Scottish heritage and our we are Scottish by birth. That's something we can never change, and it's consequently why I still do, when I record my TV shows in the UK, I record them at the BBC in Scotland, or I do a pantomime every year in Glasgow for 6,000 people a day for about 4 weeks. And we are very proud of our Scottish heritage, and that's also why we wanted to include it in on that.
That's very...
I was just going to say, it's also why when John and I are interrupting here, every now and then you'll hear that we're interrupting, but we interrupt each other in Scottish, and then we turn and we talk to you guys in American, which is something that we've always done. And in fact, our kids could always tell when my kids could always tell when I was really mad at them, because I would get mad at them in Scottish, because it really sounds better when your mother's angry with you in Scottish.
Well, I love the Scottish and the Irish accents. They're just to me very lyrical. But I think it must be very special for you guys that the community has started calling the islands what you've named them in the books.
Yeah, it's fun, but again, like, it is weird because you kind of want, it's that fine line between reality and fantasy. And listen, if they want to rename them, we're all for it.
I just thought that was very funny that you mentioned that, because that's one of the things in the book, in Hollow Earth and Bone Quill, that the kids have the ability to bring something to life from their imagination. I'm like, here's fantasy and reality crossing the streams right here in front of us.
Correct.
Yep.
Life imitates art and vice versa all the time. And so that is kind of weird.
Well, and I also, it's really fun for us too, because we've been told that people take little tour groups around the island, and they look for key places that are in both the books. And so it makes it for us even more important that we really did our research, because you actually, even though you're not going to find a Devil's Dyke in Bone Quill, that's in Bone Quill, the swamp where the Grendel comes out, you can find a swampy area with a standing stone that's an ancient Druid standing stone right at the peak of the island, and we just sort of turned that into Devil's Dyke and the place where the Grendel comes out. So you can actually go and sort of stand there, and then what we'd hope is that kids then think, they let their imaginations go wild, and they can see that happening in front of them.
Yeah.
Okay, so interesting, very interesting. I think you pretty much answered my question, but I'm going to throw this out anyway. Now, we know that much of the story takes place present day in the UK, England, Scotland, but and I'm probably going to say it wrong because I don't have the brogue, but Auchenmurn.
That's good.
That's right.
Very
okay.
Good. Ben.
So where did that? So I guess there was some place on the island that just made you think of, or you had some memory of a place, and you thought, oh, that could be Auchenmurn, and you just kind of run with that idea to create this new realm for the book?
Let me start out. Well, I was going to just say, John and I, when we were kids, are huge Enid Blyton fans, and she wrote a number of series, very popular writer in the 60s and 70s and even the 50s in the UK, and she wrote a whole series of adventure stories, like they're called the Secret Seven.
Secret Seven and the Famous Five.
Oh,
right. Yes, and John, I read them first, and then I would pass them on to John, and we loved those. And it was all about kids getting involved in these adventures, and for some reason, Enid Blyton always put them on islands or out in the middle of kind of nowhere in the Highlands or in the wilds of England somewhere. And so I just think in the back of our head we had those stories, and we thought it would just be cool to have a place that becomes established as part of the series. And as John said before, we just had a lot of really good family memories of going to the beach and the seaside right by Largs, and then the two islands, Big Island and the Small Island, are directly off that. They are not very big. John, can you remember how they're like, what, 10 miles?
Oh, you can drive around it in 6 minutes.
Oh yeah.
Oh wow.
It's not a big place.
It's not a big place, and I say 6 minutes. I'm exaggerating, maybe 15. But you could, in the course of like 2 hours, you could walk across the island.
Oh yeah.
And they're not very big, but the one thing that I guess why we called it the island Murn, with Auchenmurn and we Auchenmurn, is because the fact that with our grandmother also when we were growing up, we could have put her as a character, but and there's a bit of Jeannie and the real Jeannie, Aunt Jeannie and Murn in the character of Jeannie, but also with what the island is and what it does and the kind of protective aspect of the island, looking over the Animare and the things
Don't
of the
give
people
any spoilers.
I know I'm giving spoilers, but the people who live on it, I mean, the books are already out there, for goodness sake. But the people who do live on it, that's why we called it Martin, because that's the relationship our grandmother had with us. She was very caring, always looked at. She was almost like our second mother. So that's why we called it that.
Now, when does the third book come out here in the U.S.?
Carole's working frantically on it.
Oh, it's still being written.
Yeah, that's actually why I'm up in the North Woods right now. I'm sort of separating myself off from the world and trying to get this finished. I have a feeling that it might be spring next year in the UK, and then I hope end of summer again. I mean, we're trying very hard to have these 3 books come out within a year of each other, and then we'll have this trilogy finished, and then we've actually just signed a new publisher who'd like us to take the kids and move from sort of older middle grade, even though adults are loving the books, and take them up to young adult, and so make the 3 kids, the twins and their friend Zach, make them like 16, 17, and move into that next level. So we're hoping that kids will just sort of follow them along. But
following the Harry Potter path.
Yeah, and that's Yeah, that was going to be my next question. Do you see more trilogies or more stories with other kids involved? And there you just answered it.
Well, there'll be other. I'm sure there'll be other characters that'll pop in and out, but the main core of characters will stay the same.
Yeah, we have so much fun when we're brainstorming the beginnings of these books. We sort of brainstorm them in scenes, and we have so much fun imagining, all right, so what are they going to draw that comes to life, and what are going to be the implications of that? So it seems to me the more kids that we bring into this as they move along, that will do. Maybe we can just give your listeners a little teaser and say that one of the art forms that we're really interested in bringing in the next one is artists who do, like wall art and graffiti art and comics and that kind of thing. So, because we've done a lot, obviously the connections to traditional artists are very strong in these first 3 books.
Because there's so many. If you think our art nowadays is not just traditional paintings, and you've got poster art, pop art, you've got graffiti art, you've got everything. So we have to try to incorporate that and find a way to get that, and it's difficult because that's where the brainstorming. Carole will be somewhere and I'll be on a flight and I'll text her and say, "How about this?" And actually, and I say texting, not that I text on an aircraft; it's on the internet. Let's just keep it clear here. But yeah, so it's all the different things. But the main core of characters will be somewhat the same. But again, that could change because when Carole goes away and writes, she might come back and she'll say, something's got to happen. The way it's going, I have to do this, and it's going to have to happen. And then, I trust what she's doing, and we might have an argument about it. But from that point on, we just move it along from there.
Yeah,
sorry, someone's at the door, front door here. You guys talk for a second. Let me deal with this.
All right. I could hear either Jack or Harris barking in the background there. Yeah, actually what happens is at the very beginning of the first series, the first book, I'm listening to who's answering the door. In the first book...
I will give you the cell phone. I'm doing an interview live at the moment. And it's
let
a
them be
recorded
done here,
interview,
huh?
so I can't disconnect, but I'll give you my cell phone. Sorry, hold on. One of our neighbors has locked their dogs in their car.
Oh no!
Oh no!
And I by accident, and it's really warm here, but the air conditioning's on, so I'm gonna just chit chat and do. There you go. Just dial what you need to dial.
Got it.
Okay, no problem. Sorry, go ahead. I'll stand at the door while we do this.
All right. So I was when we drafted out the first book, the young man Solon, who's a character from the Middle Ages and is an apprentice parchment maker, and he's apprentice to one of the magical monks, if you will, the enchanted monk, and he. We were going to kill him off. Second chapter, we just figured.
He was meant to, and then no, and I'm gonna. Sorry, I'm jumping in here, Carole, because Carole then called and she said, "I've fallen in love with him." And I'm like, what? She said, no, I really think he's hot, and I've fallen in love with him, and I can't kill him in the book, in the series, so we're going to have to continue it. And I'm like, this is kind of creepy. You're actually falling for this fictional character.
I got done with the first couple of chapters, and I was like, you know what? I can't kill him off. I like him too much.
Hey,
so he has stuck around.
Dumas, I remember when Alexander Dumas was writing Three Musketeers, and he had to kill all Porthos. He came out of his room crying. So you're okay, Carole.
Thank you. I believe it. So I'm not saying that somebody might not die at the end of this trilogy, but Solon lasted. Has stayed with us.
That's awesome.
I just found it creepy.
As someone who's done a lot of writing, I am quite used to characters getting in your head, and you're like, okay, I can't kill him off. I really can't.
For sure.
Well, the worst thing is when it'll be like 4 a.m. here in Palm Springs, or when it was in London, and it would be in the middle of the night, and she was up working, and she'd call me, and she'd go, I figured this out, and this is going to happen, but I've got to get them here. So what kind of car are they going to go? And I'm like, Carole, I'll figure that out tomorrow. So go to bed.
I always turn to John in those moments if I'm desperate for cars and boats. I think I called him once about there's a scene when the characters have to get across the islands, and I say to him, we really need a boat. And knowing that young boys are going to be reading these books, they're going to want to know what kind of boat they hijack. Because if you could, make a boat come to move for you and sort of come alive for you, and you're going to draw it, you're going to want to know what kind of boat you're drawing. So he saves me some research time sometimes too.
That's great.
Awesome.
Now
go ahead.
I have a hijack question here for John. Can you give us any Arrow spoilers, really? Please? Please?
Arrow spoilers, all I can tell you is this season is going to be kind of like a redemption season for characters that have done wrong and gone down the wrong path. I won't say who, but things will be done a lot in flashbacks. So, without saying yay or nay, Malcom Merlyn could be arising in the flashbacks. That's all I can really tell you to do with me. But also the series itself. This is when Oliver becomes the hero. I mean, he was the vigilante to begin with, and the thing that I really, that I always said, he and Malcolm were very, very similar in what they did, but just went about it in very different ways. And, when people would ask me, well, what's the difference between them? I would say there's not much, because they're both vigilantes. Just one is much more ruthless than the other, and the other one has a heart. And this is Oliver's heroic stage where he becomes the hero rather than the vigilante.
Well, as a big Arrow fan, I like counting the days until that series comes back. I loved it, and watching you on it was a great treat.
Well, you'll see more.
Cool.
Excellent.
Just one last question about the books. Are they available for in a digital medium?
Yes.
They are, and also, go on.
I was just going to say the books are available for pretty much any electronic format, and there's a UK version of audiobooks that John read, and he read Bone Quill, which is the second one, in Scottish, because we figured why not? Their kids are Scottish, and it's set in Scotland, so that's kind of cool. And I'm not sure officially if it's released over here yet, the audiobooks, but it certainly will be. But I know you can get them on Amazon, or have them ordered.
There's like an extended digital book that you can buy where we actually cut in, and when you hit certain pages, we cut in with video commentary about why we've done what we've done, why the plot is this way, why the characters are doing this. And it's actually quite funny because we, as you can tell with us, we never really talk about what it actually is. We go off on a tangent.
I have to get that.
There's also one. John, was this not the one that when we did the videotape one time, you and I were fooling around and you pushed me and I went flying right off the chair and you kept the camera running? Was that the one?
Yep.
We've got that videos on there too.
Yep. Sibling abuse.
See that?
Sibling abuse is right.
Wonderful. Well, the two of you have just been awesome. I was very eagerly excited about this interview. Just and the fact that these books are, they've grabbed so many. People are just so enthralled by what you have written that I couldn't help but want to talk about it. So thank you very much for coming on. Is
you.
there any way for people to follow you? I know, John, that you're on Twitter. What about you, Carole? And is there any other social media that the two of you are on? How can they follow the progress of these books?
Well, I will go first and say that I have a fan page on Facebook, and it's Carole with an E at the end of Carole, and then an E is my middle initial, Barrowman. And then you can follow me on Twitter at Barrowman Crime, because I'm a big fan of mystery novels, and I write a lot about mysteries and reviews and articles on that genre too. So at Barrowman Crime.
And with myself, I am on Instagram, also on Twitter, Facebook, basically every platform of multimedia that is out there, even I think it is Weibo in China also. And anything I tweet or on Husei, if I send it through Husei, it goes out to every multimedia and every digital thing that I'm involved with, and they get it. So, but if you really want to follow me on Twitter, it's at @team_Barrowman, and I live broadcast tweet from aircraft from all over the place. I send pictures. You can watch me. You'll know it's me. I always sign it JB, and they're my initials first, so it's not Justin Bieber.
I should also say that we're both. I'm on Goodreads too, and there's I do lots of giveaways on there with the books and so on Goodreads. So if
she's also available to chat on Menopause Weekly.
Yeah, right. Okay, he is so lucky that we are states apart, because I would have just slapped him at that point.
She talks on Menopause Weekly, and I talk on Gay Weekly.
Yeah, right. You talk on BS Weekly. Actually, I think one of the things we're trying to figure out is how to do an AMA on Reddit. So if fans want to keep their eye on Reddit for that, we might do that coming up pretty soon.
Oh, man.
Awesome.
I would pay money for that.
Awesome.
Well, thank you two so very much. The books you can follow the books at hollow-earth.co.uk. We also have our own Sam Sloan did reviews of both books. You can find those reviews at sliceofsci-fi.com and sliceofsci-fi.co.uk. And once again, thank you both so very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.